So I've had a couple of requests to start a video uh, podcast type thing. So we're going to give it a go. My intention right now is to do maybe 1 to 2 topics, not to go very long. Something you could possibly listen to in your car while you're at work, something like that. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be very fluid, so things may change as we go along. I thought I'd do this first one a little bit about myself, and then we'll go from there. So I got into dog training. I adopted Talbot back about 92, and I'm the type of person that doesn't jump into anything very lightly. So I did a lot of research on dogs, just fell in love with the topic. My older brother, Scott, got his first dog. And when I say first dog, I mean after we'd moved out of the house, and it wasn't a family dog, it was our personal dog. He got his first dog about the same time, Josette, and he's the same way. We were just reading anything we could get a hold of. We were trading books and articles and talking about dogs and evolution and training methods. Excuse me, all that type of stuff. Just fascinating. So I took Talbot to his first obedience class, or pet manners class, I prefer to call it. It was my first class also. And I decided that's what I want to do. It just seems so cool. So he graduated. Should mention Cheryl Mayhew was the person who taught the class. Wonderful trainer. I learned so much from her. Jump forward 20 years. Decided to open my own store. It's a self-serve dog wash. My intention at the time was to offer dog training through the store. It was a long-term plan. So to that end, I took a class. Now it's important to mention, dog training is an unregulated field. Anybody can go out, print up business cards, and call themselves a dog trainer. It's the cause of a lot of problems with dogs, but we'll get into that maybe in a later podcast. I'm not sure what to call this, video blog? Whatever. So I decided the route I wanted to take was I was going to take some classes, and I decided on Companion Animal Sciences Institute. It's run by James O'Hare. Wonderful guy. Learned so much from him. The classes were heavy on evolution and behavior, learning theory, a lot of scientific information in these classes. Now, that's not to say that a trainer has to take classes to be a trainer. I know and work with several trainers who got their experience firsthand, just going out and doing it. And they're excellent trainers, and I've learned a lot from them also, working with them. Gosh, we're coming up on 10 years probably, some of them. So it's not to dismiss that route either. This is just the route I chose. Gave me a really strong foundation and really good background. So while I was taking these classes, excuse me again, the Pet Professional Guild was formed by Nikki Tudge. She's kind of spearheaded the whole effort. And this was in an effort to get some, how do I want to say, set a standard for trainers. There are several organizations out there. If you pay your dues, you're a member. And the Pet Professional Guild, you have to maintain a certain level of ethics just to stay a member, not even to be a member, but to stay a member. And I was just really impressed with the way they had set everything up. So I joined the Pet Professional Guild. I've been a member now. I don't even know how many years, 4 years, 5 years. Pretty much since they started. I was just past the charter member. I shouldn't say just past, but I was a little bit past the charter member stage when I joined. So I joined the Pet Professional Guild. Once I finished my classes, I got in touch with local training centers, Columbia Canine Sports Center, where I've been teaching group classes for quite a while. I went through, I would call it an internship. That's not exactly what it was, but I worked with several trainers before I was given a instructor position there, and I've been doing that ever since. I've been concentrating mostly on puppies lately, and I'll get into that more later, but while I was there, they asked me if I would get my Star Puppy / CGC certification so that I could teach those classes also. So I've had that for several years now, also 3-4 years, something like that. Also during that time, I have given talks on bite prevention mostly to kids, a few other groups, older groups, adults, that type of thing. While I was putting together a PowerPoint presentation researching for bringing a child, a baby, newborn, into the home, somebody caught wind of this, got in touch with Jennifer Shryock, and she contacted me, asked if I wanted to join the Family Paws Parent Education. What do you call that, Jennifer? It's a group, it's an organization, deals specifically with those types of issues. Bringing a newborn home is called Dogs and Storks. The transitioning from newborn to toddler is called Dogs and Toddlers. It's simple enough. Anyway, so I became a member. It was a 13-week, pretty intensive class to become a member of the Family Paws Parent Education and be able to teach those. Really great program. So that's a little bit about my history. Love to read studies, and I'll talk about that more in a minute also, but I work on a principle that you should be your dog's favorite toy. All good things should come from you. The example I always give in my classes is if your dog gets out the front door, is running down the street, he's having a great time. He hasn't been out here, he's exploring. It's like going to Disney World all of a sudden without knowing it. Surprise! And so you're chasing them. Come here, come here, come here. The dog knows the fun is going to stop. Now, when we talk about punishment is just decreasing the likelihood of a behavior happening. So it doesn't necessarily mean you grab the dog and you hit him, but going inside, taking the dog off the street or out of the park or wherever they've run to, back inside, that can be considered punishment in scientific terms. So the dog knows he's going to be punished if he gets caught. It's no fun. There's no reason for it. If you become your dog's favorite toy, if you are more exciting than what it is that dog is following, chasing, looking for, whatever, chances are much, much higher that dog is going to return to you. I've had all my dogs off leash trained since Talbot, and that was part of the way that I taught that behavior. It's like, oh my gosh, you came back to me. I don't care. I'm not going to punish you that you ran out of the house. I'm going to reinforce your coming back to me. I'm going to praise you and pet you and tell you what a good dog you are for coming back to me when I called you. Worst case scenario, we have deer that travel through our backyard. One was coming up between the house and an outbuilding that we have, and Duncan, the dog I have now, he and I were out in the front yard. He was off leash. Don't remember what I was doing, but I saw him just take off between the house and the outbuilding. And I said, "Duncan, here!" And he stopped, and he looked at me, and he looked at the deer, and he looked back at me, and he was like, "Yeah, okay." And he came just trotting back, straight back to me. That's kind of the benchmark that we're always going for. Doesn't mean it's going to happen every time. There may be something that's more reinforcing than you calling the dog, but again, that may be a topic for another video blog or whatever. So again, you should be your dog's favorite toy. The other thing I always like to mention in my classes and private sessions that I've done, we want the dog to respond in a real life situation. Again, if the dog gets out the front door, you're not going to have time to grab the leash, grab the clicker, grab the treats, all these things. So we want to get rid of the treats as fast as possible. Now the treat is like a paycheck. I was a graphic artist for 20 years. I expected a paycheck when I did that job. When I got really good at it, I did some volunteer work. Friends would ask me, hey, could you put something together for me real quick? I was willing to do that just for its own edification. And that's kind of what we're looking for with the dogs. And again, probably a topic for another cast. The other thing I always like to mention is training times, particularly puppies. Since I have been working with them, you'll probably hear me talk about puppies a lot more than adult dogs. Excuse me. You want to keep the training time short, particularly if you haven't done what I call formal training, where you set aside time and you get the dog and have the treats and have a specific thing that you're going to go over for a few minutes or however long. I'm not talking about the dog jumps up on the couch and you don't want him there and you're like, dunking off. That's not a formal training session as I'm referring to it here. So you set aside the time, you work with the dog. You want the dog and you want to be excited about coming back to the training next time. So I recommend keeping those times short. There's less time to make mistakes. You'll both be more enthused about coming back to it later. Ways you can tell if a dog's getting stressed or tired is if they're licking their lips when they're not thirsty, yawning when they're not tired, what we call look away, where the dog won't make eye contact, it just keeps looking away from you. Those types of things are low-level signals of stress. It's a good time to stop. It's human nature to get just one more time. You did it once, let's do it just one more time. Go ahead and stop. Dogs aren't humans, and it's going to be better for everybody involved if you just go ahead and stop and come back to it. Now, I usually recommend starting with about 5 minutes, 5 minutes at a time until you get into that routine. That doesn't mean you can only do it 5 minutes every day. It's 5 minutes, maybe 3 times a day if your schedule allows. I work, I teach, I am back in school myself. A lot of stuff going on. It's not always practical, but more time you can spend on it, the better. But I would just break it up into small increments, small sessions. The other thing I always like to mention, particularly about puppies, and I don't know if the next one will be about this or not, but it'll be pretty soon. But that's kind of a teaser or a primer. Don't mistake being a puppy for a problem behavior. Puppies chew. Puppies have accidents. Puppies don't respond to training. It takes time for them to grow out of those things. Most of the things they will grow out of as long as you don't allow them to be reinforced now. All this said, it doesn't mean that we're permissive and we let the dog get away with anything they want. It just means we understand where they're coming from and change the motivation so that how do I want to put this? We change the situation so the behavior is expressed appropriately. That's probably not a very good way to put that. The final thing I want to mention, I'm also going to use this for self-promotion. It's me, it's mine, I can do what I want with it. So there. I am writing a couple of books. I've written one, it's self-published, My Journey, Where I Come From and What I'm Trying to Tell You. This is a children's book. It's very broad, very basic, but it's a good conversation starter. Covers history, evolution, and communication styles of dogs in a very simple way. I wrote this for my daughter, who's 10 now, but I started when she was about 6 or 8. So it's written for about that age group. I'm also working on a training book. The working title is Simple Solutions to Basic Problems. That's probably going to change, but it's the most frequent questions I am asked in my puppy classes: how to deal with them, ways to prevent them jumping up, chewing. I'm trying to remember, I think recalls are in there. I'm waiting for edits to come back from a couple of people, so that should be in the not too distant future, and I'll certainly announce that when it comes out, when it's printed. hopefully these will get better as I go along. Fewer ums. Probably have some pictures besides the screensaver going on behind me there. If you have any questions, let me know. Be happy to answer them. Do a vlog about that. Any suggestions? Totally open to hearing them. I'm really good taking constructive criticism. If you're rude, something like that, I'm gonna, delete it, ignore it, whatever. So let me know what you think, what you'd like to hear about, and we'll see how the next one goes.